housing finance companies as well. So that's the first question. Now, when it comes to the resolutions that are required for raising of or issuing of debentures, I think so. The section 180 requirement essentially was on essentially on borrowings, etc., where they've said that they're giving a 1 year transition window. That if you previously passed an ordinary resolution, then that ordinary resolution shall suffice, and you don't need to go get a special resolution. But in the case of debentures in specific, I think there are more specific provisions that apply there, and those essentially say that in the case of a NCD, you can get an annual approval done, which covers all issues during the year. But I think for all the other debentures, you will essentially need a specific approval for each issue. And which then I think so therefore any old approvals that you have, unless it was for a specific issue, etc., it might not actually suffice. And anyway, the new issue is being done under the 2013 Act, and I think you will need to go and get a resolution done. And at least that's, like you rightly said, I think that's the practice I'm seeing with most companies, and in their upcoming AGMs or EGMs, they're actually putting up all these. No, but NCDs also it gives you the option to raise, but essentially there's a requirement to go with a kind of special resolution. It's just that you can do one umbrella resolution for all issues that will be done during the year. I think that's yeah. You still need to do that one.
One last question, please. One last question.
Yeah.
I think there is a mandate now for the CFO for each company to appoint, right? So in a structure like where there is a group company and where there is a group CFO only once, and what kind of a mitigant in that? So do we need to appoint CFO for each and every company, or can a key managerial person can have a dual responsibility? You can give a director as a CFO. What kind of a stand on that?
Sure. So yeah, apart from listed companies, there are several other classes of companies that now are required to have key managerial personnel, and one of them being the CFO. Also, if you look into the details of that section, it says that a key managerial personnel in one company can also be a key managerial person in a subsidiary, and that is used in the singular. So our reading is that he can be a KMP at best in two places, and that also between a parent and a subsidiary. But he cannot be like a CFO in multiple entities or the group, etc. So you will need to have other individuals identified as CFOs for those companies.
So can one CFO be can you outsource the CFO activity to the group CFO, like one company who is a subsidiary or whatever?
No, that's what I said. So you can't have one individual being a
CFO
KMP in more than two places.
It's only two.
Yeah, and that also between a parent and a subsidiary. So not even like two fellow subsidiaries or something like that. Yeah.
I'm sure there are many more questions, but we are really running out of time. We can. Okay. Just one.
What will be the impact on the audit committee who has approved the arms related party transaction when the transfer pricing adjustment happens at the time of the TP audit, or maybe at the time of TP assessment?
Sure. So the tax authorities drivers are very different from the drivers from a company law perspective. Although both of them are looking at saying that transactions need to be undertaken at an arm's length, but the tax authorities' view is very one-sided. They are only looking at protecting the revenue and the interest from their perspective, and therefore, if it is transacted at a price which is higher than what is arm's length, I think they are fine with that. Whereas from a company law perspective, it is looking at transacting at a fair price. So that's, I think, one difference that's there. Now, companies also need to kind of ensure that while they are demonstrating to the board and the audit committee that this is a basis on which we are determining arm's length, that it is not inconsistent with the basis that they are adopting for transfer pricing purposes. So that is where I think there is a need for them to kind of make sure there's more harmony, and they're kind of marrying the two together and making sure, because it's only a matter of time. Let's say you follow a different methodology and approach for demonstrating to your board and the audit committee, and you follow a different approach for transfer pricing. The TP authorities could come and ask you to show me what you put out to the board, and accordingly we will assess whether it's arm's length or not. So if you have a different basis, yes, you get caught over there, and that could lead to a lot of issues. But coming back to the first point that you raised, what happens to the audit committee if a TP adjustment is done, etc., is that at the time the audit committee took that decision, I think they should have had a reasonable basis to say that this transaction is happening at an arm's length. So it's okay if it gets challenged by the tax authorities, like because I said they have very different drivers in determining what is arm's length, etc. And a lot of times you can actually say that even meets commercial reason in terms of what they expect. But so long as the audit committee had a reasonable basis to take a decision at that point, I think they will be able to defend their position.
Excuse me, ma'am, just a last.
The speaker will be available. Over snacks, you can probably have some discussion. We are really running out of time. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Sai, so much for such an insightful discussion, and you simplified such a mammoth topic so nicely. I would now like to invite Anil Ghilani, Director IIP, to give the vote of thanks.
So I think just a very brief discussion, and on behalf of the IIP, I would like to thank Sai very much. I'd also like to thank the National Stock Exchange and Jaina Madam and rest of the colleagues from NSE, always very helpful and host us very kindly at the NSE Auditorium. I'd like to thank Professor Manjrekar and his students from NM. They're always very helpful with entire event setup, and all of the volunteers of IIP. But most importantly, I'd like to thank each one of you who are participants at this event. No matter how much ever effort we do, no matter how much ever effort the speaker does in putting forth a good session, the participation is important and a very interactive audience. Thanks a lot. And I do realize that today is a very important IPL match, so we do see some bit of a leaner crowd today than general. But so for all of you who did sacrifice on the match and came here, really appreciate that. To give a small token of appreciation to Sai, I would like to request Sunil Singhania, who is here today. Sunil Singhania, most of us know as the Chief Investment Officer of one of India's largest asset management company. But besides that, in his volunteer capacity, Sunil has been the founding president of the IIP, and currently he has been the first ever Indian to be nominated on the Board of Governors of CF Institute. So Sunil, I just request you. Great, so thanks a lot, and I think as Sonia mentioned, we do have a little bit of networking time outside, and Sai will really appreciate if you can stay back for some time, grab a bite, and also interact with a few of our members around. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice evening and a good weekend ahead.